sure you've all got questions about the business. Some of you, I think, are catching up with Rod or with Kong Meng or with me separately, so I'm happy to put anything on the table and answer any questions now. I guess I'm mainly focused on the ANZ business, but I can speak to AP and other stuff. In worst case, I'll come back to you with the right answer here. So let me give you an overview of ANZ, perhaps.
Yep.
So right now, I work for a company that's transforming globally. I would say that ANZ is probably going through a sharper transformation than even Lenovo globally is going through. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we didn't have a consumer business in ANZ up until about the 27th of October this year.
Did you have one before and then got out of it?
Not really. What we did have in the past, Alex, was there was a couple of times where we sold product into a retailer sort of opportunistically.
Mm-hmm.
That was, there's another vendor that does that. We did a couple of volume positions into some of the retailers, I think, before we actually had the strategy put on the table. This is now a long-term phased investment strategy where we've gone in with 2 retailers initially. We're about to expand that footprint. Now we're going into another country just east of Australia very soon. So now it's a very well documented phased strategy that is paying some good dividends, and I think we're heavily invested in that.
Sorry, did you say you never had a consumer business until October? Is that what you just said? October 2014?
In Australia.
In Australia.
In Australia, that's correct.
Yep.
I would say, we can call it a structured consumer business. As I said, some products did come into Australia, I think, a couple of years before, but there never was a structured consumer business in ANZ. And that was part of my challenge, I guess, coming into the role to launch that business. The consumer business is not really terribly profitable for anyone. It's a fast-moving, fast-paced, thin-margin business, but it brings you scale. That's one thing it absolutely brings you, and scale is important. Some of the products that we've brought to market, like the yogurt product, really position the innovation that we have, and so on. So there's a number of advantages in launching that consumer strategy in ANZ, and I think we're starting to realise a couple of those. So that's the first part of the transformation. The next part is to do with the acquisitions we've had. So we've never had an enterprise business globally, really. We've had a Think Server business in some parts of the world, but we didn't have a Think Server business in Australia. Now with the acquisition of x86, we're going and ramping that pretty quickly. My priorities there initially, come 31st of October when the acquisition was finalised, is really the integration of the teams. And you may or may not know, I was in Japan 5 years into the NEC integration. And what's most important in these sorts of acquisitions integrations is focusing on culture and how you integrate that culture and transcend, I guess, some of the business processes to really understand the people and how they're fitting in and how that works as a single entity. So I've been very focused on the cultural transformation and integration of the teams. We've essentially in the first quarter kept the lights on. That's what it was all about. We didn't want to get any smarter than that. We kept shipping product. We kept ordering product. We didn't invest heavily and try and, I used the term yesterday, sort of boil the ocean. We didn't try and hit it too hard in the first quarter. Now we're starting to ramp away from that. So I've got the channel sales teams integrated. I've got the end user sales teams integrated as of this quarter. So now we're able to really start to push the business a little bit harder. Rod spoke about it. Our ambition, or Kong Meng spoke about our global ambition to become number 1, obviously, using a similar model to that of the PC. Rod spoke about Asia Pacific. I guess, we've been number 3 here in Australia, the System X business. It's really grown beyond that for me. And I think, given our breadth of products and some of the scale we have and our ambition to invest, that's a realistic outcome. I'll talk about last year. Last year, Australia and New Zealand had about 87% year-to-year growth. So that's by far the highest growth of any vendor in probably the region, I guess, definitely in Australia and New Zealand. Some of that was driven by our consumer launch, but in all segments of the market, we grew fairly aggressively. We've got a strong commercial business, based in a lot of the large enterprise companies, but we've also grown very effectively in the SMB space. So there's another vendor out there that's larger than me in SMB, but I think we finished about 1,000 units off them last quarter. So we're ramping quickly and really investing in programs and strategies and delivering products that service that market extremely well. We work in a channel partner organisation, so it's enabling those partners to really carry that message as an extended sales team to our end user customers. We've done a better job of engaging the end user customers, the SMBs, directly through things like our website, our Think Forward website. At multiple points across our engagement model, sort of focusing on not only delivering a faster, better, more efficient service, but having a direct touch and then bring them back to our partners as well. Consumer grew to in excess of 10% share in the first 6 months, which is, I think, a stellar result.
Or from zero?
From 0 to 10% in about 5 months, actually, 4.5 months. At the end of this quarter, we'll probably finish on around 13 or 14% share, which will put us in the number 4 or number 3 position potentially.
So that's what? You're talking tablets and consumer notebooks, yeah?
Correct, that's right. Consumer space, so really through the retailers. We've only gone out with 2 large format retailers initially, which is JB and Hi-Fi. JB Harvey and Hi-Fi Norman. Jesus. JB Hi-Fi and Harvey Norman. And as I said, there's a structured approach on how we potentially introduce more partners, and then we'll also go into New Zealand as well. We've also gone in initially with a fairly limited product set, really focused on the premium space. We've expanded that over the last 6 months to include more volume plays and also include desktops. And again, it's really what I'm trying to do here is build a very structured, managed business to mitigate risk and exposure and all those sorts of things that come with that as you launch these sorts of products into the market. Now, we invested about $7 million in the launch. We got Ashton Kutcher here. We've done a number of things to make sure that out of the gates we start to build momentum immediately. So we're not waiting for anything, but it has to be a structured rollout. At the same time, we invested about $5 million into our commercial structure. So we bought new offices. We've got a data center a small data center in Chatswood now. Again, there it's that integration of the teams and building those efficiencies and those processes to deliver what our customers expect. In terms of our priorities in the coming year, it's ramping the EVG business will be close to my top priority. Driving the premium and consumer. You saw some slides from Rod on sort of our AP priorities. We're not dissimilar to that. Continuing to ramp the consumer business. Last quarter, according to IDC, we became the 3rd largest PC vendor. We ever took Dell in Australia. And I think we're still somewhat in our infancy in consumer, so we're going to continue to ramp that pretty quickly. Again, market share, I'm not sure how much that matters to consumers or to our customers, but again, it brings me scale, which means I can invest.
Sorry, Matt, did you say you were 3rd largest PC vendor in Australia?
Yes.
But yet globally, you've been number 1?
Yes. So we're on the journey of number 1 is what I can say here. We didn't have that consumer business. In the large enterprise space, we've been number 1 and number 2 with HP. We've been duking out with
consumer
HP.
here,
No. In the large...
Just PC, yeah.
So globally, we're number 1.
Yes.
In Australia, we've been very, very focused on our commercial business.
Yeah.
So that's large enterprise space and education space.
Yep.
In education, we're still number 1. In large enterprise, we've been sort of number 1, number 2 with HP, but we've only been in part of the market.
Yeah.
So it's expanding that TAM out, that addressable market out, and that's what we've been doing with the consumer. So I think, since we've done it, we've gone from number 5 to number 3. I respect our competitors. We'll keep, working in a market with them, but I think we're on our journey.
So
So just to clarify, number 3 for the overall market or number 3 in consumer?
Overall market, and I think probably according to GfK, we're number 4 in the consumer market already. So there's Apple, HP, and Toshiba or something. I'll have to refer to numbers there if you want them specifically.
When is it number 3? Oh, number 3 being overall. Yeah.
Overall, yes. Yeah. And we're a super ambitious company, guys. We are so ambitious about how we go to market and what we're doing, what our expectations are. We've diversified the company last year in terms of the acquisition. So you've got the data set, it's the handset, and everything in between. Everything in between we've had for a number of the last 4 years we've grown quite a lot. So the enterprise stuff and the mobility stuff we've got to grow now. But at the same time, I would say we're not complacent, but we're not arrogant at all. Like I think we respect the fact that we've got to go and make some big investments and deliver on expectations. But I think we're pretty well set up to do that.
So we're not ever going to see Lenovo handsets in Australia, just the Motorola? I mean, you've got Alcatel and others playing in this lower end space, but then Motorola's not expensive either.
Yeah, sure. Well, their E series is a value, or G series is a value proposition. The Moto X is going quite well. We've got some premium products on the roadmap coming through soon, which I'm very much looking forward to. They're going to be pretty cool. I'd say, in terms of the mobility business, if you look year on year, and it's probably, we have to respect the market last year in terms of what the size of the motor business was. But year on year, we've already grown about 80%. So the motor business is already starting to ramp. There's efficiencies in our supply chain. There's a number of things we're doing to enable that, right? So just simply by having the scale and previously being the third largest smartphone vendor anyway, we're bringing that into the mix. So motor is starting to ramp anyway. I think we're going to hit sort of 2 or 3% share in Australia in the coming months. So that's fine. There's a big gap between the two large incumbents, I guess, and the other mix of players below them. And I have to be realistic about that. But I don't think in the short term we're going for that aspirational target. But I think we will grow the business pretty substantially. Now, as we build that plan, Alex, to answer your question, will Lenovo phones play a role in that? They could. I think, unfortunately, I'm going to have to sort of say, watch this space. So as we build those plans out, we'll consider that for sure.
So what's your first ambition in smartphones then? Is it to get out of the others category into the top 5, or in Australia? I mean?
In terms of share, I think we want to be number 5. That's on the money. Probably, the motor business has been mainly driven through the retail space up until now, and we've got a couple of big opportunities alongside of that. So it's working with the telcos and expanding our telco presence, and it's also our online presence. So Rod spoke about the Moto Maker. That's been phenomenal success for us in the US. We've just launched it in China, and bringing to market that customizability of a phone and the individuality of a phone is going to be interesting for us.
So when will that come here, Moto Maker? Tell a story.
Here, I think. We're in Australia.
As in Australia?
Yeah,
In Beijing? Yeah. In Australia, I can't say, but
nearly.
Are you announcing that it's definitely coming? No?
But it is coming. Yeah.
my suggestion is that yes, we've got it.
It's a matter of
to
time.
Australia. Yes, it's a matter of time. Correct. Thank you very much.
Let me just quickly write.
So instead of opening a Lenovo experience store, you're going to focus more on the whole online marketing thing.
I think, again, Rod said it in the thing, we're going to focus on e-commerce for sure. There's opportunity for us there. I think we are a channel-based organisation though, so it's managing that within those relationships we have, and I think our primary focus will remain the channel for sure. We don't want to have that conflict, but Moto Maker can go through that channel anyway. So we could put Moto Maker stores in telcos, or we could put them in retailers to still bring that individuality. So I think online and e-commerce will be a focus for us, but it's in harmony with our established strategy.
And you mentioned store within store for the Moto Maker, but what about store within store for the Lenovo products, like a stand, like Apple has stands on Microsoft?
Didn't you just say that the Moto Maker could be a retail in-store experience?
Yeah, but that's different. That's different to Lenovo.
Well, so what I'm saying is, we put Moto Maker in some of the retailers in the US. That's a model that's worked for us in the US. Yeah. I don't think we've firmed up any plans here, but that's not, that's an option for us.
Yeah, sure. So you could go into a JB or a Harvey's and say, right, I want that colour with this, boom, boom, and then come and pick it up in 3 or 4 days.
Or we'll send it straight to you.
We'll send it, or be shipped out. Right.
Exactly right.
And you mentioned through the telco, so say if it's you want a Telstra plan or something, you can still, that's a potential as well to do through the telcos?
Look, I would say very openly to you, we haven't firmed up our strategy there, so I don't want to sort of commit to anything yet, but based on our US model, that's worked there, and I think that we're taking the lead.
So retailers online, that's some models that have worked for you that could be brought to Australia.
So Moto Maker is a direct play in the US. They also work with partners in the US to have that sort of in-store kiosk experience to have the same flexibility. At the same time, and I think we do this here in ANZ quite well, we've got the standardised models, but we do actually pick the key models. So there's a black model, there's a white one with bamboo, and so we sort of take the 80% and put those into a retail space as well, so you can have that immediate.
And so when I said Lenovo before, I meant Lenovo laptops and desktops and tablets, and not the phones store in store. I mean, how do you sell them now? Are they just in JB or Harvey Norman next to all the other computers, or is there a space for them?
So there's a dedicated shelf space. So in all of our retailers, we have a dedicated shelf space, which actually looks pretty cool. It's all Lenovo branded, Intel branded and stuff. And I think we stand out actually in those spaces. As I said, we've invested with the retailers to make sure that happens, and we sort of can build that brand out of the gates. Could we do ThinkPad in retail? We probably could. Products like the X1 Carbon and stuff, and SMB, who knows? Up to 20% of the people that walk through Harvey Norman's doors are SMBs. So this is an SMB type product. So could we do a CTO in retailers? Again, we've talked to them about it. It's a possibility. Nothing's
What's a CTO?
CTO is configured to order. So when you go into retail, you buy something that's like that, where you can go and say, I want this and this and this and this, and then we ship it straight to them in a week.
But they organise that in the store, or they do that online.
So the model in Japan that we use right now, which is a possible model for us, is they go in store. There's a screen in front of them, and this is
they do it online in store.
Online in store.
That's
but
they can actually see the product and say, oh, yeah, I like this product, but I want it to have more RAM or memory.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right.
Just getting back to the Motor Maker, do you think you can turn it around in 4 days, like order to delivery, like in the US, or?
Until we build a model, I don't know. I couldn't say.
I mean, does Australia have the population base to actually do to do it in Australia? Or like
so I think in the US, the assembly happens in the US, right?
Yeah. So.
Whereas the assembly for Asia Pacific would probably happen in a consolidated point, so it wouldn't necessarily be in Australia. So I think you can have that additional.
So that point, in China or somewhere.
It could be in China.
So
I
at
think
that point, it's going to be longer than 4 days, right?
Yes.
We should expect more like a week turnaround or 2 weeks.
It's difficult to say right now. I think we deliver our notebooks in 9 days, so that might be a good guideline. But it's not something we're ready to commit to yet. We have to build the model.
Just 9 days, eh, for the notebook. That's pretty quick.
Yep.
In Australia.
Yep.
Wow.
Go online now and order notebooks. 9 days.
Just give me a credit card, mate. I'll test it out, eh? Let's go.
You spoke a lot about during the welcoming keynote speech, everyone was talking about you want to be a disruptor.
Yeah.
Can you speculate a bit about possible future UIs, without giving anything away, but the sort of stuff that Lenovo might be interested in, particularly with laptops and things like that?
Okay. Yep. So I think at Tech World this week, we're going to announce a couple of different things around that. One will be working with large partners and how we're integrating our technologies. Another one will be around sort of Lenovo-specific technologies. We have our Enterprise Cloud Services Group, ECS Group. We spoke briefly before about what's Lenovo's cloud strategy in Australia, right? And these guys are driving some of that, the global view of that. So that's not just a Lenovo cloud strategy, that's a Lenovo app strategy. That's, it's a broader base, and I think there's 4 specific announcements we'll make at Tech World this week, which we can't talk to yet, obviously, unfortunately, but it addresses some of that in terms of what we want to do as a company, from an application perspective, and how our devices can perhaps be unique in that respect, and then some of the partnerships we're doing to sort of integrate some technologies and ramp them a bit faster.
Okay. Yeah. So you're looking to ramp up the application aspect?
We are looking to do everything. I think that's definitely part of it. I think, yes, as we go and grow the enterprise business and the PC, part of our strategy must be, Rod spoke about the diversification of revenue streams. It must be. It simply must be. We used to have 85% of our revenue as PCs, now 65%, and it's going to continue to contract in terms of percentage and still grow in real terms. But services and our ecosystem is going to be a very rapidly growing part of our business.
I mean, we see Apple and IBM coming together to make all these business apps, over 100 apps specifically designed for the mobile experience. I mean, you're talking about apps and services, is that the same sort of thing? Where you've got these dedicated apps for different businesses so they can do healthcare or field work or hospital stuff or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so there's probably 3 things I can say that. One is, we have, I'd call them more generic apps, so we have Reach It, Share It, hundreds of millions of downloads already. And these are collaborative tools that allow me to share with you, phone to phone, peer to peer, a 1 gig file in sort of 10 seconds. They're very, very efficient tools. Then we move on to working with partners, again, probably a more mainstream play, not vertical play, more mainstream play to integrate some of our technologies with some of our larger technology partners. And then the third part is looking at verticalized spaces. We work now currently with SAP in Germany. This is a German-specific solution, but it's healthcare orientated, it's touch devices and how we integrate those touch devices into a managed healthcare environment, patient record management, that sort of stuff. So, and that will come. So we've got 2 focuses this year in healthcare and education to deliver verticalized solutions, which includes apps.
Yeah. Well, just to expand upon what Amy was asking.
Yeah.
So just to double check, healthcare and education is where you're delivering the end-to-end solution, which is what I guess Lenovo essentially wants to do.
I think those are two focus segments.
In Australia? Or
It's a global statement.
global?
It's a global statement. Those are applicable to Australia.
Okay.
And then we've got Intel with their real sense. It's like a Connect type environment where you can just wave in front of the computer. And
Yeah.
we've seen Asus do stuff with that, although it's all still yet to really come.
Yeah.
But are you a partner with them on that, or is it?
We are. Yeah, we are. We'll be launching products with them on that in the coming months. I think we'll make an announcement potentially this week as well. A minor announcement. That's not one of the four I was talking about. But yes, we will invest in that with them.
Getting back to the revenue mix, say Samsung, 50% of their revenues or higher is smartphones. And in consumer electronics in general, it's usually half the market or more. Is that sort of the mix you're targeting, like to be?
ANZ-wise, Australia-wise? Look, market to market it varies. In Australia, the smartphone market in revenue terms is bigger than the PC market right now. Right? So I think, do we want to gain our fair share across all those segments? Yes, we do. So based on that, I'd say that eventually our smartphone market will ramp considerably. I'd say that, we're building that business now, so it'll take some time to get there. But eventually, I see, with the direction that we see devices heading, PC is still a very viable space for us. It's still a big market for us. It's still, commercially very, in a commercial sense, still a market that will continue for a long time. But we're looking for the growth areas, and the growth areas are smartphones. So therefore, I think our mix in ANZ will definitely swing towards that type of mix. I don't know whether 50% is the right number, but it'll definitely diversify towards smartphones more than PCs.
Mm-hmm. What about in the laptop space? Like it's you've shown that 2-in-1s and touchscreen laptops are popular.
Mm.
Is there going to be a stepping off point there now, where we're in the near future where you may not make a laptop without a touchscreen now, or is that, or a 2-in-1 device might be the go-to product now for Lenovo? What is that?
Yeah, so those devices, the 2-in-1 devices, the converged devices, the multi mode devices which we produce are going to ramp continually. Right? So those will continue to gain mix. I think, as we've seen over time, there are price points we need to hit. Those price points continue to be compressed. And if I look at the education space, for example, touch plays a very important part in education. We actually just put we have a Horizon product, which is like a tabletop PC. Mm-hmm. We just put 750 of those into New South Wales childcare centres. And what that's about is not delivering a PC with touch. That's about having 6 or 7 kids around a screen and having a collaborative outcome. Mm-hmm. Not sitting there by yourself with a tablet, but actually having everyone on the screen, 10-point touch, and working together and doing those things. Yep. So at the same time in education, we need to hit a price point. And in a clamshell type device, touch is not as important. So, our customers will weigh up what they really want to do. I'd love to put touch in everything. I think touch delivers a...
Well, I'm going to ask when are you going to...
So you're still going to make those clamshells that the traditional...
Yeah,
you're not going to turn your back on those?
The mix of touch will continue to increase. And I think we're one of the highest mixes of touch in an ANZ market where I can't remember.
And so was this in reference to the press release you put out today about the laptops in education with styluses? Okay. Well, I only saw it come in. I'll just have a look. Where is it here?
So just while waiting for Alex there, so education is obviously a very big segment for you guys in ANZ. Yep. Has that always been the case, or is it just something new? It's a recent sort of acquisition for you guys?
I suppose for the past 6 or 7 years, it's been a core part of Lenovo's business in ANZ. Lenovo's held most of the contracts in Australia for education, so the large New South Wales, Victoria, DC contracts. These are the government-funded contracts, and we've supplied devices, as I say, for the last 6 or 7 years. The model now is changing a little bit. So the funding that Mr. Pine is allocating to the states is changing from a centralised model into a distributed model. So now it's more around the schools making their decisions, the parents making their decisions around products. Now we're trying to best inform them on the products still, and I think you still get what you pay for. So you can go and buy a very cheap clamshell device or a Chromebook or something like that based on price, or you can still have a device that it has touch and it has certain capabilities. And the challenge for us, or the challenge for the students, in fact, is that there are different learning outcomes on those two different devices. If you're sitting next to someone that has a product that does X, Y, and Z, and you're sort of sitting on a laptop with 3-hour battery life, there are different learning outcomes. So I think our responsibility is to sort of try and educate, and then provide the products that are competitive. And
So what you're saying is that now the model, the funding model, is that that funding's given to schools and families, and they make the decision, whereas before the government just came to you and then you gave it to the schools. Is that how it
correct.
works?
Yep. So we've
That's
had
a bummer, isn't it, for you guys?
Yeah.
well, it is and it isn't. So here's why it is and it isn't. It's more challenging for me because now I got to go and expand my base. Absolutely, I've got to talk to all the schools and not rely on the centralised guides to do it. But again, historically, we've gone in and bid on a tender, and large part of it's based on price.
Yeah.
And I don't know that those products are necessarily delivering the best outcomes. So now we can go and talk about a tablet device or an all-in-one device or those sorts of things, and we're getting a lot more traction with that mix of device.
Sure.
So, I think you have to look at it two ways. One is, do we potentially expose some of our sales to other vendors? Of course we do in that model. But actually we're selling a different type of product as well, which is pretty cool.
So you're saying the ASP goes up?
Yep, absolutely.
So having those
I
variety
think
of products gives you the edge, don't it?
It does. Look, our breadth of product does, because I think there are certain vendors that will focus on Chromebook, and that's where they go and do it. Now, we're good partners with Google, of course, and we've got some Chromebooks in our line, but that's not my focus.
Yeah.
So they can go and have that actually. That's fine with me. I'll go and focus on this part of the market.
Mm-hmm. We're talking like all levels of education, like primary or high school or university, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, K to 12 and then also tertiary. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there was a ThinkPad 11E, which is in clamshell or as a yoga. Some have a pen, some don't.
Correct. So look, the 11E, here's a good. So this one was built for education. It was built by engineers in Australia. Like this is a global product. It's one of our largest selling products globally for education. Built it here. It's now evolved to a device that has a yoga hinge on it. So it'll go all the way around. It's a tablet or it's a clamshell. It comes out in Windows or in Chromebook.
Yeah.
It comes out in touch or no touch. So we're really, we're taking this device. It has pen-based input
And Core M processor.
Yep.
Did you say it's built in Australia? Did you say
Made.
Designed.
So we've got design centres across the globe. Raleigh, India, China. We had a design team down in Australia here for about 9 months, looking at the Australian education market as a leader for the global education market, and that's where the product was built.
That's where it originated, right?
Designed in Australia, I should say. Yeah. So we have, Australia's the 11th largest economy in the world, but in terms of PC market, it's probably the 30th or 40th largest PC market in the world. We still have that ability to influence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what other marketing are we going to see? I mean, I know it says online, it's nebulous online. Does that mean you're going to sponsor people's websites or?
You saw how pumped and stoked Mr. Owen was today.
Yep.
So we got a new logo. We're going to invest in that. Look, it's Nick talked about being disruptive. I think there's a certain amount of marketing speak in anything that anyone does. And this is no different for any company, right? So we've been seen as the challenger, I think, in Australia. So I'm absolutely cool with that. Like I want to be the underdog. I want to come up and invest in that. And as I said, in October we invested. I said 7. We actually invested closer to $10 million in our brand launch with what we did. And I'm going to continue that investment because I have to. It's it's that position where we have to, or that outcome where we can sort of use these tools, and I think some of them are pretty cool. Like there are some pretty cool tools in terms of the dynamic logo and stuff. Like people much smarter than me in designing that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But these are sort of calls to action for us to go and drive the brand. And fundamentally, at its simplest level, Alex, yes, we're going to have great new brands and taglines or whatever it's going to be, but I have to invest in our brand in Australia anyway, and this is going to help me accelerate it. So that's all good for me. Right? So yes, you'll see it more online for sure. Are we going to do TV ads? Probably not. It's digital and social structure. Nice. Australia's got.
Well, you might see YouTube ads, in front of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
It's probably a smarter spend than putting it on TV.
Social.
Yeah. So digital and social, we're almost 100% for our launch, and I think we'll continue that trend for sure.
Bringing Ashton back
Danielle's
anytime soon.
gonna
Bringing Ashton back anytime soon for more punked in
I hope
JB.
so. I hope so. Look, I think
We're going to see him on Thursday or not?
Did I see him on?
Are we going to see him on Thursday?
No. I I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, I mean, product engineer at your first big major thing, I expected he would be.
Yeah.
But
Was
we'll
he,
see.
he came down to Australia, right?
He did.
Flew down, and we had a good time with him, and I think he enjoyed it. He came down for
The
a
video
holiday
was very
recently,
funny.
actually,
The
as
video
well
was
with
funny.
Mila, because he didn't bring Mila down
Yeah.
with the baby for a couple of reasons. But he snuck back into Australia recently and had a brief holiday. So he likes Australia, which is good. I think if we gave him the opportunity to come down again, he would. Probably what we're doing right now is making sure we're signing the contracts with him again to keep the relationship going, and based on that, yeah, let's hope.
Yeah.
Does that help you guys sort of get more brand recognition, or having like a Hollywood star on the books?
Your target audience is Ashton. Well, you know.
Well, the millennials, I guess they are. Like at the Teen Awards, he made a bit of an emotional speech about this and that, and I think he cuts through those guys. He's a big Twitter follower and everything else. When you talk about disruptive market, I mean, we did that thing in JB Hi-Fi
That
where
was
he
disruptive. Yeah.
got dressed up as Caudry or whatever
Yeah,
his name was.
Caudry. Yeah, he's funny Australian accent.
His dad liked Coors beer, and his mother name was Audrey, so he called himself Caudry. And he went, just had a bit of fun. Like, it was that punk fun. So I think that's what we'll do, right? When we do that sort of stuff, we're not going to get him up in front of a. We did get him in front of an audience, by the way, as you know, but not the traditional stuff. We'll do some other
It
stuff.
gets you on the morning talk shows at least. Like without Ashton, you probably wouldn't be getting on Today or whatever they're called.
I think it's tough for a technology vendor to get on those sorts of
That's
programs.
right.
I mean,
When
we
you've
were
got
on the-
Ashton, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he was on the panel. You see him on the panel? Not the panel. The project.
Yeah.
And he had a bit of fun. He had a beer at the end and all sorts of stuff. So that's kind of what we want to do.
Yeah.
So Australia's like Japan. It's got an ageing population. The issue's not so big in Australia yet, but we've got the baby boom and stuff. So actually, 0 to 4 years old is now starting to contract a little bit. So we've got to be super wary of that. And I think our market is that millennial market. That's where we want to go push our consumer products at least. So a lot of the marketing will be around that. So that's why digital and social makes sense for us.
And then just like you see these phones with super big buttons, I mean, we're going to have some tablet with super big, chunky bezels for old people, so when they drop it, it's not going to smash into their faces.
There's.
I mean, that's the baby boom. That's the aging.
Maybe down the track. Probably not yet.
I mean, without the oldies, there'd be no young people.
There's a product in Japan called the Waku phone, and it's a push button phone with big buttons for the aging population. So I think it makes sense to do that in certain spaces and markets. I don't know if we have a global product. We might, but you can change the size of the buttons and everything else. So maybe having a system to enable
You have to think about
large font, maybe. I don't know.
Well, it's already there. What about having your own OS? I mean, at the moment, your fortunes. Apple's got its own OS. Microsoft has its own OS. Microsoft makes its own hardware now. They're going to make their own phone. They've got their own watch. Lenovo's got to rely on Google and it's got to rely on Microsoft. And if they want to go in a different direction, that's kind of you have to follow them. And there's the opportunity to buy BlackBerry, although that ship is sailing fast for that company and that opportunity. So what about some sort of? It's too late to make your own OS and have it grow. Really. So what happens there?
I think I'm gonna be a little bit. I'm going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit here. I think if you would have said you could have said 10 years ago it's too late to develop an operating system to compete with Windows.
Yeah.
And Google went into it anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think the door's ever shut on that. I would say that we've got 2 strong partners now we work with, and we'll continue to work with those guys. Like it's not our core competency right now. But as we develop our cloud strategy and our application strategy, there are always opportunities there to expand that. But I think on our roadmap, near-term foreseeable future, there's no intent, there's no...
Are you going to work closely with Google and Microsoft on Chrome and Android and Windows?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
We're going to see any Windows 10 sneak peek stuff on Thursday? New form factors for Windows 10 or stuff for Windows 10?
Quite possibly we could. I think we've got some pretty cool products coming out for Windows 10. I don't know if we're ready to show them this week. Obviously Satya's going to be there, so maybe that's good timing to do it. But I don't know for sure. So.
Do you even need a new form factor for Windows 10? It's like Windows 8.
I meant not necessarily new form factor, but just something to take advantage of that.
What I'll say is one of the announcements we'll make will be around a value proposition around Windows 10. Absolutely, one of the 4. So yes, we will make some announcements there in terms of how we work with partners. I'm not saying more than that because otherwise I'll trip up. But I'd also say that we're Microsoft's largest partner globally. And as much as they have, launched some hardware,
It's very targeted, it's very specific. It's not broad.
even then, a lot of the development they do around hardware is with us. Like a lot of the investment they make, and a lot of our research and development dollars are, our co-dollars. So we're working together pretty hard to actually make, the decisions in terms of where the direction goes. We're not reliant upon them to sort of say, well, here it is. It's a collaboration.
And do you think we'll ever see like the latest yoga tablet with the hinge? I mean, I wish I could have something like that I could still pull apart, because you can have a super thin screen and a super thin keyboard, and then of course you have the problem of not enough battery in the screen.
Yeah.
But it's great that you can do it, fold it in half and have that, but I still wish I could disconnect them.
Well, again, 3 years ago, did we think we'd have something like yoga? Probably not. And the Intel technology and the efficiency of the new platforms and stuff gives us the ability to do that super thin thing. So I would imagine in the next couple of years that's entirely possible. I haven't. I'll be honest with you. I haven't seen anything on the roadmap that does that. And the robustness of the hinge and the mechanism and everything else continues to be an engineering focus, right?
And personally, I'd like to see more Pico projectors in more form factors. It's nice to have it in the Android tablet, but how come it doesn't just sit here on the back of my notebook so I can just project it like that?
It could.
Or some sort of mini one that I could just plug into a USB and just angle it up. And it would have to have keystoning too, so that it's not at an angle.
So, did you go to Barcelona World Congress? So we announced the product at World Congress. I'll get hold of one so you can have a look at it. It's a Pico projector that's about this big. I'll have to get your dimensions. Runs on battery, 2 hours, plugs in your mobile phone, syncs via Bluetooth, so you can actually use your phone to project to a 50-inch screen.
Yeah. I mean, I have right here, this is one of the world's first projectors that's got an Android computer built into it. So I can project up to 80 inches, and I've got air mouse, and I can touch the screen, turns anything into a touch screen. And the only thing it hasn't got is a SIM card socket.
Okay.
And I'm one of the first people to get it because I've been waiting 8 months for it to arrive. And it's fine, I'm going to show it to Nick because he wants to see it. I bought it, so Lenovo needs to make one of these and have it in stores by Christmas.
So our Pico projector is about the third of the size of that.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a computer in it. This is a full computer. This I can have a keyboard and mouse, and it's a full Android 4.4 device.
So battery?
Yeah, 2 hours battery life. I'm just charging it now. I've got the pens here. You have to buy it online, $600 US to get it.
Right.
There's the pens. You just touch anything. I can actually have a shadow on the screen and push the button and go like that. Or I can use this as a mouse, air mouse.
So the Minority Report is here, is it?
Yeah, it's here.
Okay.
It's here. And Lenovo should be making one of those. And it should have a Core M processor inside there. It should be Windows. That should be. I don't know why Lenovo's not doing it. And it's not as if that's been a secret. It was an Indiegogo project, which was supposed to be delivered last year, and only got it 2 weeks ago. Only just arrived.
I would love to have a breadth of product like that. I think we're bringing some products to market. IoT. So in China now, we're bringing IoT devices to market. So we are expanding fairly rapidly.
So what's an example of some of those?
Air conditioning or air filters in homes. We have Lenovo IoT.
Are they phone controlled?
Yep. Phone controlled, internet based. On, off, plus other options, I don't know.
And is that Lenovo's own brand of air conditioners?
Yes.
So is that coming to Australia too?
Not at this stage. I think we'll build some scale in China and then look at what we can do outside of China. Are IoT devices coming to Australia? Yes, I just don't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
So you just said you do air conditioners.
In
like
China.
a Lenovo branded.
Lenovo in China has a broad spectrum of products that aren't outside China. So we have printers in China. We have, I don't know if they're air conditioners or they're fans, and then there's air filters as well.
Which you need in China. Air filters.
Yes. So and if you're interested in devices, I'll get you the specifics on them. But essentially, there are a number of household devices that are now controllable via smartphone, mainstream devices.
I suppose they'll go through a few generations here, and then they'll come to Australia or elsewhere in the world.
Yep.
Once they've been matured a bit.
Exactly. And I think a lot of the IoT stuff in a consumer space is still a little bit conceptual. So the home automation, we know it's coming. We know it's got so many possibilities, but it's probably a little way off mainstream. And I think we're probably focused on building on that to ramp with the mainstream. Maybe take some leadership positions at some place, but in the commercial space, there's a huge opportunity for us as well. And
do you know if Motorola's going to make a Windows 10 phone for this year or next year?
possibly.
Seeing as they're arriving this year.
Yeah. I think
Motorola's been a strong Microsoft partner for years
yes.
in the Windows space.
Yeah.
It's
I think they're always looking at options. So So the current lineup, obviously there is no Windows options, but we're always looking at. All right. So I think we're supposed to be in here for about 40 minutes. We've been in here for coming up an hour, or thereabouts.
45, we're on time.
So I'm just quickly. I know I've got one-on-ones. That's all.